Where do we go after a live stream with Charlie McLean? What else can we possibly do? Nothing really. So tonight, it's just me and you. Hope that's okay. Hello, Whisky folk. Welcome to another vPub. Welcome to another Thursday. Nothing particularly fantastic, special, no famous guests, nothing structured to do this evening. Just to welcome you all for a little bit of respite from all the craziness that's happening in the world right now. We're not going to talk about the C word, whether you call it coronavirus or COVID or whatever. We're going to take some time out of all of that craziness and just kind of have our little Thursday night pocket of ring-fenced whiskey time, a bit of community time, and forget about all the things that's really quite distracting and distressing and troublesome right now. So I hope that that sounds good to you guys as well. It's just a solo stream tonight. It's only going to be me, but nevertheless, I'm very, very pleased and excited to welcome you all. There was over 100 of you waiting before the pub doors even opened again. And it's wonderful to see that and have that support and encouragement. I hope you're enjoying yourselves in the lounge, you fantastic whiskey folk, you wonderful barflies. I have been super busy in the last couple of weeks. In a few minutes, I'll give you a wee resume of what I got up to in the last couple of weeks. It's been fantastic time for whiskey. It's been great fun to hook up with so many of you guys. I'm going to talk about that in a wee minute. But of course, the theme tonight is a theme that kind of interests me a little bit. And the theme is talking about how long whiskey lasts. Talking about two things, of course. Once you've opened a bottle, how long will that whiskey last in that open bottle? At home in your collection here as you're sipping it. But also in a sealed bottle. Two very different things, two very different dynamics at play. I hope you've not come here for facts or answers or science. This is a discussion. I'll have my own opinion on these things based on my experiences, of course. And it doesn't always agree with the science behind it. But I'd be interested to hear your opinions and things on the subject as well. And we'll kind of have a general kind of Q&A session, a bit of a chat backwards and forwards. And I'll be able to hang out with you guys a little bit tonight as well. You'll notice that things have changed a wee bit. I'm much further away from the backdrop. I needed a bit more space in the room. And I'm still kind of messing around with the lights and things. But as long as you can see me, as long as you can hear me, I think we'll be okay. So let's jump into the lounge. Welcome all you fantastic barflies. And you can tell me what you're getting up to. I'm going to scroll back a wee bit and look out for the orange kilted moose. Scott is in New Star. He's saying hi, Aquaviti, as is Luke Gixer Skipper. Good evening, Luke. Nice to see you as well. Service Alafis from Norway. That's my friend Andreas. We were talking about you this week, Andreas, and we were missing you. I'm hoping that things are going to stay even enough for us to manage to get together over the course of this year as well. I'm thinking about events like Limburg, etc. McAllen Fine and Rare is in as well. Doc, you star, you're always here. You'll notice that you've got a spanner next to your name. There was a really, really busy stream a couple of weeks ago when we had Charlie McLean on, the Charlie Effect. And we attracted some spammers, and not very nice spammers at that. And when I finally noticed a bit later on in the stream, I gave out some moderation permissions to a couple of people in the lounge, and they cleaned it up for me. Thank you very much, Alistair, and thank you, Steve Anderson, as well over in the States for helping me out. Doc, you've got a spanner next to you tonight, and that way I'm just kind of covering the bases. If you see any, I don't mind mild swear words and things. I just don't like anything spam, trolly, and I don't like personal attacks. So that kind of thing, just clean it up. We never have that. Honestly, that was a new thing last time. And we have such a positive, fantastic community, all very supportive and polite and considerate. And I want to kind of protect that as long as I possibly can. Doc, I hope you don't mind having a wee spanner next to your name. Marcus Kreitner is here saying, hi, Roy. Hi, Marcus. Hope Christina's next to you tonight. I hope you're keeping well. Menno's Multi-Mission is saying, a famous host is all we need, Roy. Well, I have to say, the kind of the Charlie effect thing that happened. We noticed it a year ago when we had Ralphie on as well, that we were handling a completely different dynamic. The chat was moving so fast. There were so many people in because people are genuinely interested in what people like that have got to say. I'm just really, really excited and really pleased that the platform, YouTube, is being taken seriously now. People are interested in good quality content, and it doesn't matter how it's coming. And if that's coming through video on YouTube, we're able to attract more interesting people that would otherwise be a wee bit unsure. But Charlie's been remarkably laid back and supportive. And of course, I'm hoping that we can have people like Ralphie coming back and joining us in the vPub again. But I'm interested to hear from you guys who you would like to see. Because you tend to find in Whisky that you reach out to people. There's not kind of many prima donnas. People are really quite modest and down to earth. And if they see something that they might be interested in joining us with, a nice topic to discuss, I'd be happy to reach out with the types of people that you would like to see on as a guest. I approached Roddy recently. Roddy's excited to come back again. We're just kind of trying to thrash out some ideas for themes and things. So I would love to have Roddy sitting alongside me, somebody to run shotgun for a wee evening. So that could happen very soon as well. Whisky Wednesday's in. Drammy saying, hi, Alco Karen, 8 in the glass. Good for you. Fantastic drama is as well. I've already finished another bottle of it. I get through it far too quickly. Tony Evans is in. Fantastic to see you, Tony. Whisky Novice is here. Jim from Northern Ireland. Fantastic. Donald Rance from Canada. Ebhead Rolf from Norway as well. Fantastic, Rolf. Donald Pass Whisky. Tim. Alistair Gray. Mark Goins is here. Fantastic. Victor E. Good to see you, Victor, my friend. Rico is in from Germany, as well as Christine Deems from West Coast, USA, I think, Christine. Fantastic to welcome you in. Whisky Loving Pianist is back again. Good to see you, my friend. He's saying no C word. I fully agree. Let's avoid that topic tonight completely as much as possible. Andrew's in, Prestige Liquids from Australia. Wow, we've got a fantastic international representation in as usual. Sam Clark, good to see you. Gregor McQuee, Pete Head, Tabitha Adams. Tabitha, thank you so much as well for your recent support, you star. Greg's Whisky Guide, Aaron McFault, Daniel, the Whisky Dram. I was hanging out with Daniel last night. He was wearing one of these shirts. I was really chuffed to see it. Daniel, fantastic to welcome you in. Matt Cigars and Whisky saying, good evening, Roy. Jimmy Legg, you star. Good to see you in, Jimmy. That's Blair saying, Whisky and you are always my focus. Let's raise a glass to that, Jimmy. Slancher to you. And Malcolm Douglas is here. Good to see you, Malcolm, as well. You'll notice that a lot of if the name is blue in the chat. So if you want to know what the chat is, if you're watching this, it doesn't matter if you're watching it live or if you're watching it on the replay. Under this video window here, you'll see kind of I think about there, you'll see a little button that says live chat. If you click on that, you'll see the people in the chat that's joining me live here tonight in what we call the lounge, the pub lounge, and they're talking to each other in there. If the name is green, they're a member of the channel. They've chosen to support the channel through YouTube by clicking the join button, so they get access to fun little emojis and Glencairn glasses and things like that as well as other bits and pieces too. And if they have a blue name with a spanner next to it, they're a moderator, so they can help me manage the chat if things get a bit tricky. I'm looking for a name. I think he is in tonight, and I'm looking for a name, Dave Cummins. I want to talk to you about Dave. If he's here tonight, we will talk about it, because there's a bit of an interesting story there, a bit of a human story there, very much connected with Whisky. But if he's here tonight, I'd like to talk about it. Welsh Toro's here. Dave Cummins is, in fact, in. So let's talk about that as I welcome Matt E., who's chosen to join the Aquavitae Barflies. Welcome, Matt. So Dave Cummins, let's kick off the show with this kind of human story, because it's really kind of cool. Through Jens Roger Christofferson, through Whisky Base, Jens put me in touch with Dave Cummins through Whisky Base, and a chat in there. And the reason is that in Dave, we have a man who is interested in trying whisky and getting on board trying whisky, and he wanted a gentle hand to lead the way. And Jens put my name forward as somebody that might be able to help him. But it's more than just the fact that I'm a bit of an evangelist and I love trying to convert non-whiskey drinkers into enjoying whiskey and letting them understand just how much pleasure and amazing things can be inside a small pour of whiskey. The reason that that's very, very interesting with Dave he's coming to Scotland to go and visit a distillery and have his first sip of Scotch whisky, first sip that's ever touched his lips at a distillery in Scotland. But it's more than that. Dave has never sipped any alcohol of any kind in his life. And this is his 50th year. He's the exact same age as me. And for his 50th year, he's decided enough's enough. He understands a bit more about alcohol and things. Scotch whisky certainly appeals to him. The tradition, the magic of it all, the things that can draw you in when you're outside the whisky bubble. And he's chosen to come to Scotland to have his first ever sip of alcohol at a distillery in Scotland. And the two of us are going to meet up and we're going to go along to Glengoyne and hang out there. And if it feels right, if everything's working out and he's comfortable, we're going to film this, because that's a kind of huge event. I would like everybody to reach out to Dave Cummins here. He's I've spoken to him. We've managed to hook up on a live together, and I know we're going to get on great. He's from the US. He's from oh, Dave, I forget now. Is it Wisconsin you're from? I'm kind of stabbing in the dark. That feels right. But welcome Dave in the chat. Say hello to Dave. He's clearly not dramming along with us, but he's joined in the last couple of live streams and he's getting a kick out of the community as well. So it's more than just that idea of whiskey and what whiskey can offer in a glass. It's everything that surrounds that passion that whiskey can bring out in folk and that positivity, that shared experience. So welcome Dave, and I'm very much looking forward. Other factors notwithstanding, of course, I'm very much looking forward to welcoming Dave in Scotland in early May. Welcome in, Dave, my friend. I'm having a dram tonight. It's a very interesting dram. I'm probably enjoying this more than I've ever enjoyed it. And I'll tell you what it is. I think it could be the whiskey that I have had in my collection open the longest. I've brought a few bottles here, and I'll go through these with you when I start off on the theme tonight. But this is a Benromac. Now it's fairly up to date. It's the kind of newer branding, G&M. This is a G&M release, but it's quite early. I think I have had this in my collection open for more than 10 years. I'm certain I have. And it's obviously a whiskey that I didn't really enjoy too much when I first bought it, because the ones that I enjoy don't last. But you can see that it has been sipped over the years, and I've gone back to it time and time again. But I've never really fallen in love with it. And I've not fallen in love with it tonight, but it's definitely different. Is it different because my palate has changed? And the kind of jaggedy, spirity youthfulness that I got from this Benromac, it's 40%. It's a non-age statement Benromac. And all it says on it is matured and hand-selected oak casks, Speyside single malt. There's no details on it whatsoever. A little bit of blurb on the back telling you to look for some balanced malty tones with a hint of smoke. I can tell you there's absolutely no detectable smoke in this to me, but that's not to say that somebody else might not get smoke. But this has lasted my collection far too long. But let's not talk about what I think of this whiskey. It's not a review of this whiskey. It's talking about, do I think this whiskey has changed as it's been sitting in my cabinet at kind of this level now for a number of years. And it's been open for about 10 years. Greg's Whiskey Guide is saying, hey Roy, I got this one too, but now it's gone. Enjoyed it though. That's interesting that you enjoyed it, Greg. I think as you move along your whiskey journey and you start to maybe enjoy more spirit-led flavours rather than cask-led, maybe you would enjoy this a wee bit more, but it's certainly very youthful and jagged in my palate. It's not jagged anymore. It's kind of rounded out. It's softer. McAlpine Herrera is saying a wee sip every 3 years. You're not far wrong. It's something like that. And it's not the kind of thing I would share, honestly, because usually when you're sharing a whiskey, you would like it to be a nice whiskey that you think the person might enjoy. So I'm very reluctant to share something that I'm not really enjoying myself. This is no comment on the modern Benromacs that we know. As you know, I've evangelized about Benromac on this channel. The 10-year-old is great. The 10-year-old 100 degree proof imperial strength version is fantastic too. The Benromac 15-year-old, they've got an organic, they've got a peated malts, they've got a great range now, a robust range of kind of old school style whiskies. And as G&M has been releasing Benromacs over the years, they've been getting stronger and stronger, I believe. And I do recommend Benromac to people quite regularly. Andrew's saying the bottle I have opened the longest was a Lafroig 4 Oak. It was open for 2 years and unfortunately never went off. I wanted an excuse to tip it. Lafroig 4 Oak was one of those expressions from Lafroig that didn't go down well with a lot of folk, unfortunately. Non-age statement. I think 4 Oak was a travel exclusive as well. I think it could have been. I think I tried it, but I never ever owned it. Andrew Butler is saying, I bought 2 bottles in October 1997 and finished them in December 2016 with no problems at all. Andrew, absolutely. There are so many whiskies that I have really enjoyed my time with them, however many years they've stayed in the collection. And I'm kind of going to talk about that. Not every bottle has lasted and stayed robust. Most of them have changed significantly. But I don't think it's a bad thing. Skogsmard is saying, can we have an update on that bottle with a piece of wood stashed away for a few months back? Good idea. Got a longer reach now to go back to get it. But this was from Graham over in Canada. And he brought me this Gagetown straight rye. This is at 40%, but it was completely clear. And it came with a little chunk of applewood in the bottom. And now you can see that it's just starting to colour up a bit. It's taken a long time to colour up, and it's directly related to how active this little chunk of wood is. You know, some people might get more active pieces of applewood in here, and they might find that it's colouring up more. I remember this being very, very enjoyable and sweet. That was a nice pop. I'm going to pour just a tiny wee sip of this. But I think we can trust from the colour here. It's still very pale. We're not really getting overly, well, it's not oak, is it? It's applewood. But we're not getting overly woody here, are we? Wow, it's very sugar sweet. Confectionery. It's exactly like bubblegum, actually. Pink, in the UK, we had pink bubblegum called bazookas. It's exactly what it smells like. So lots of green notes, a little bit of ginger, but a little bit of spice, a bit soft. It has changed. It has changed. There's fruit. Now it's applewood, so maybe that's suggesting to me, but the fruit here is a green apple. It is changing. It is definitely changing. But this has only been open, as you guys know. I opened this and I dropped the applewood in this on a live stream last year. And it's taken a while to come round, right? It's not going pale very quickly. Scroll down and catch Alan McLaughlin. Alan, you started just bought my virtual drama and saying 9 a.m. here in Melbourne. So we'll need to catch up on the replay as he's at work. Great meeting you and the guys at the SMWS opening in Glasgow. Oh, wow. Alan, I need to place you. And you're in Melbourne. It's been super busy, and that was a busy night too. But actually, would have obviously you're not Australian. I would remember meeting an Australian. Damn it, Alan, I apologise, but I'm going to raise a glass and ask for your forgiveness and say thank you for your virtual drama friend. And it was fantastic to have met you there. I just need to place you and remember who you are. Did we take a picture? Cheers, Alan. You're embarrassed now. Thomas Elmer is in saying, Aquavita, do you think there's a lot of movement with the wood completely submerged? It's absolutely still. So what happens every now and again when I see it there, when I'm moving things around or dusting or whatever, and I pick it up and I do give it a kind of tumble and I swish it around for a bit. But you're absolutely right. It is sitting there absolutely stationary. So there's not a lot of movement. It is a factor. Absolutely, Thomas. I'm enjoying your Elmer T. Lee. You'll notice that the level has dropped a wee bit. Actually, it's moved through to the drinking room now, and I've been sharing it out. Shared a few with some barflies as well. Colourless Blue Things is here. Good to see you again. He's saying, evening, Roy. It's good to welcome you back, my friend. Nice to welcome you in. And Luna Aaron is saying, good to see you, Luna. I once had a bottle of tomatin that tasted of cardboard after being open for 1.5 years. I do hear these stories. That's never happened to me, certainly not after that short amount of time. So let's talk about that. You know, if I take you through here, the bottles that I have that have been open in the collection the longest, this Benromac is a candidate for one of the longest. I've got another non-age statement here. Some of you might recognize this, others maybe not, but this was a very, very cheap, inexpensive lead chick non-age statement, very heavily peated, very, very young whiskey. I imagine that this was in the order of 3 or 4 years old. Very sweet and very smoky. I didn't not like this. I did enjoy this, but it was just a bizarre whiskey to me that it was very one-dimensional. It was kind of all about the peat and the spirit. There was no layers beyond that. But I think that this has been in my collection. This is 42%, again, quite low ABV, for at least 10 years. A similar time to the Benromac. I've had it a long, long time. In fact, the house that I'm living in now, both the bottles that I've shared with you came from my previous house, and we moved here in June 2010. So we're potentially speaking about 11 or 12 years, actually, certainly more than 10 years. And this one is the exact same as that. This is our Mortlach, a 10-year-old Mortlach, an independent bottling. It was actually a commemorative bottling for a local golf club here. This is at 40%, a Mortlach at 40%, always a shame, right? And I didn't really enjoy this. This was, I felt just, yeah, not a great example of Mortlach. It's the most polite way I could say it. And I think all of these whiskies exist for a reason. They're all quite young and spirity. And this one would have been sitting up at the golf course and people would be just having a whiskey and lemonade or a whiskey and ginger or whiskey and soap. Whatever they would have been having, they would have been mixing it potentially, even with a lot of water. So people aren't really sitting in it and analysing or appreciating these whiskies. It's not a flavour thing. As long as it tastes like whiskey, you know, that's what these things are here to do. And I think that that's probably why they've lasted so long in the collection, that there wasn't a lot of complexity or depth to them there. And the other two that I've got to share is, this is less, this is maybe about 7 years or so. This is a Chivake, this is a Gallic blended whiskey. And I picked this up because it was very cheap, it was on sale, another 40%, this is blended whiskey. Again, this is almost half full. As far as blends go, it's different. It's quite an interesting blend, but it's not an easy sipper. It's quite challenging and it's very spirity. And I've also got this, and I'm going to try a dram of this tonight. This is a 1983 Kalila, but it was bottled in 2010, and I bought it in 2010. I bought this at an airport. I use this to try and make Brora because it's been quite smoky and peaty. It's been typical Kalila. Not the best, though, despite its age. And what I would do is try and make a Brora alike. I would take some cast strength Clynelish of a good age, and I would add some of this 27-year-old Kalila to try and make a nice Brora alike thing. And sometimes I had an approximation of that, but I was never particularly good at it. Whiskey Weekend Drama saying, I don't like to mix it with ginger ale. I like the Bowmore 9 Sherry Cask, bad whiskey. I like the Bowmore 9 Sherry Cask, bad whiskey, so they don't last long. I see. He's saying if he doesn't like it, he mixes it with ginger ale. That makes perfect sense. It's a good way to use up what's not bad whiskey. It's just whiskey that you don't enjoy very much. Multi-Mission is saying it looks like a wine bottle, the Chivake. You're absolutely right, it does. Even with the red at the top, but it's Gallic whiskey. Kresimir is here. Good to see you, Kresimir. He's saying, is it cheating if you pour your last 5 to 6 drams in a smaller bottle to preserve the quality of whiskey? Absolutely not. There are lots of people that do exactly that thing to preserve and lock it in at that state as much as possible. Some people like to keep little libraries of the whiskies, especially the ones that they've enjoyed. And if they're going to keep that whiskey, rather than keep it in a fairly empty-ish bottle with a lot of air, they'll put it in a small bottle and put it away. And that makes sense if you're going to keep it for some amount of time. Vicky Thompson is here saying teabag. Good to see you, Vicky. Absolutely right. It's a true story, and I know it's most people will make that tea bag joke. I've made it certainly a lot of times myself. But when I bought this in the co-op locally, this is not the type of whiskey you would expect to see in the co-op, but it was £14 and I bought 2 bottles of it and I gave away one. When I bought it, it wouldn't scan. There was a barcode on the back here. It wouldn't scan. It wasn't coming up. And the guy shouted across, I need a price for a bottle of tea bag. That's exactly what he said out loud. I think he was pretty sure he was pronouncing it wrong, but thought he'd have a laugh with it anyway. Zach Andrews has just bought me a virtual dram as well. Thank you so much, Zach. And he's saying, cheers, Roy. Tell us about that peated Capardonic. I saw you comment on that. I will get to that. I'll tell people exactly what I was getting up to last night. What a night. Cheers, Zach. This is a nice dram that I'm lifting here. Neil Cochran is here. Good to see you, Neil. Tom R is here. Good to see you, Tom, from Chicago. Tom is saying, Roy, Lechik and Tobermory have become my go-to drams this year. Oh, you're talking modern Lechik and Tobermory. That's something else I need to tell you about. Curious to know your thoughts. I have only had the distiller bottles and love every one. Tom, Tobermory and Lechik have had a renaissance. There's no doubt about that. The Tobermory has changed from a 10-year-old to a 12-year-old, and it's much better for it. Lechik has long been something I've enjoyed very, very much. Older Lechiks are try before I buy. Lechik 10 is a staple for me. I love it. I get through an awful lot of it. Honestly, there's another empty one going there, but it's been in the recycled review twice already. So maybe it'll appear in another one, only if I've kind of changed my opinion on it. I love Tobermory and Lechik. Connor Strang at London Whisky Club last night handed me a sample of a 21-year-old Lechik in a Manthania cask, and I'm really curious to try that as well, because what happened with those distilleries, the same as Deanston and Bunnahabhain, is that they had a complete overhaul in their processes around about 18 years ago, early 2000s, where they changed fermentation, distillation, cask management. I've talked about it often here, and they changed over time how they presented that whiskey as it matured as well. So we know it's 46.3% minimum, unchill filtered, natural colour if at all possible. The preference is always natural colour. And they've just upped their game hugely, and that's what you're enjoying, Tom, I fully believe. Lechik 13 and 19-year-old PX, Tobermory 12 Fino, and the Tobermory 15 are all several years old. Okay, so these are, they've been in a bottle a while. I think I'm familiar with the 19PX. Tobermory 15. I'm familiar with the Tobermory 15. That's a very old school style of whiskey. That's a sherry cask, Oloroso cask. Quite a dirty old Tobermory as well. That has appeared in a recycled review. I enjoyed a bottle of that very much. Wayne McCoy has just joined the Barflies as well. Welcome in, Wayne. It's nice to see you here. And I think it's a new name to me. Welcome, my friend. Billy Saunders saying Aquavitae is off to Skye tomorrow for a week. What bottle of Talisker do you recommend? Then jumping to Harris Lewis for the second week. I've always been a fan of 57 North, the 57 degrees North expression of Talisker. If you can get your hands on it, it's nice. Talisker 18 is always a treat. If you can find it, if you can get your hands on it, I think everybody's going to know what I'm going to mention is the 2018 special release Talisker 8-year-old. It's the best Talisker I've ever demolished. Just fantastic stuff. I've got one bottle left. It's sealed. I'm going to keep it for a while, but I would like to get my hands on another Talisker 8 because it means that I could crack one of them open and get enjoying it again. Wonderful stuff. Fully ex-bourbon. Cask strength as well. I paid, I think I paid about 80 or 85 pounds. And on secondary market, I've paid up to £100 to replace the ones I've been drinking. Wonderful stuff. Simon Ray, great to see you. And Simon is saying he was excited to find an old bottling of 12-year-old Highland Park in a box that had been forgotten and 2 house moves. It was at least 14 years, half opened, and it was unfortunately undrinkable. It does happen. And I think, Simon, it's got so much to do with how it's stored, what kind of whiskey it is, how much is in the bottle. So it's maybe gone a wee bit acidic. It's maybe gone a bit flat. It's gone a bit it's interesting what you mean by, to understand what you mean by undrinkable. Sunday evening, Scotch is here. Good to see you, Michael. He's saying, have you opened that Russell's Reserve store pick? I see back there. I'm a huge Wild Turkey fanboy. Love those Russell's Reserve single barrels. Would love to hear your thoughts sometime. I will get round to it, and if I can point to it, he's sharp-eyed because he's looking at this bottle here, which was a gift to me. I'd love to just remember who gifted it me. I'm doing terribly at these things. I was talking about this recently as well, with the amount of samples that comes in. If you don't write your name on the samples, what I used to do is put it in a little sealed Ziploc bag with the letter or the note that it came with. But what happened, I was building a library and they were never getting opened and drunk. It was like another barrier sealing them and putting them away. So I try and keep the samples out and spread about the place now, as you'll see behind me, so that it reminds me to enjoy them when I'm in the mood for something. But the trouble with that is I'm not recording it as diligently as I once did. I will open that Russell's Reserve, Michael, and I will share with everyone. Ben Demon Hunter is saying good evening and afternoon. I can only stay for 5 minutes. It's nice to welcome you in for however long you can stay, Ben, and you can always catch anything that interests you on the replay. There is a quiz tonight. Later on, there is a quiz. I managed to put together a quiz today. I was under a bit of time pressure though, but I think I managed to put together a reasonable quiz. There is a theme to the. I'm not going to tell you what the theme is. See if you guys can work it out. Vicky Thompson is saying, have you tried Talisker Dark Storm? Yes, I've tried Talisker Storm. I've tried the Dark Storm. I preferred the Dark Storm, but both of those were kind of none of them are as good as the 57 North. None of them are even close to as good as the, honestly, and I know it's not comparing apples for apples, but that 8-year-old was an exceptional whiskey, honestly. So there we have it. All of these have been open in my collection for a long, long time. And I have to say that my summary of these, just by tiny sips, just by kind of giving them a smell and a tiny sip, is that they still fully taste like whiskey. But none of these have gone off. But they have changed. All of these taste soft to me. And I don't mean soft as in low ABV, like we've lost some alcohol or whatever. I'm talking about how if you imagine a waveform, a whiskey flavor as a waveform or something, and you can sometimes get quite high, jagged notes, things that are obviously loud and shouting at you. It's not happening here. These are quite soft and rounded. And I have to be honest that in most of the cases here, I don't mean it in a good way. I think these are all at the point now that they're becoming a wee bit flat. But I think it's good, and that's what the recycled reviews are all about. I think it's good to understand some of these bottles over an exceptional amount of time, some months, some years even, how the bottle is going to change. How science interprets that is different, because we are told by the producers that whiskey is a stable product, that it has a very, very long shelf life. I mean, I'll tell you a story about when we got on to talking about how long it lasts in sealed bottles. The oldest bottle that I've ever sipped from, and you might be quite shocked at how old that actually is. But we're told that whiskey is stable. And we're even told, through scientific research and process, that whiskey stays stable after it's been opened, even after some years. Now, they might be measuring the whiskey in some way that they can show over a certain amount of time that there's been no change. But I think everyone in this lounge that's got that experience will know that it changes. There's an element of our palate changing over time, there's no question. But that doesn't answer how all whiskies kind of change in a similar pattern. They kind of relax a bit, they soften out, they round out. They do lose some of their jagged edges over time. If you were looking for any advice, Chris over at Liquor Hound is very, very interesting, because he will drink from a bottle and he'll gas it. He'll use preservative gas and seal the bottle again to try and lock the whiskey at a point that he feels it's reached its peak, perhaps. But I've never, ever done that. I've never even owned a preservative. I've never, ever done it. I've never found it appealing at all. I always kind of want to explore the whiskey and let it change. And if I felt the whiskey was going off or going a bit too flat, and it was one that I was enjoying, I would probably just kill it off, just enjoy it and share it. I only ever lost one bottle beyond what I found acceptable. And it was a Yamazaki. It was an honest statement Yamazaki Distiller's Reserve. And it was only maybe a year and a half, 2 years, I'd be guessing now, but it wasn't a long, long time. But I remember reaching for it to share it one time, and suddenly it just completely changed in a very, very short space of time, and it gone completely flat. I remember it tasting a wee bit like flat Coke or something like that. There was that in it. There was a bit of kind of black tea. I remember just really finding it. I thought that it had been polluted perhaps in some way. But I sat with the dram, and while it wasn't undrinkable, I'd lost the whiskey. I realised that I'd completely lost it. And the way that I finished that off, we sat out and had a barbecue on the back patio, and we threw it over ice, and we found it easy to drink on a warm night over some ice. And the guy that I was drinking that with is actually Craig Dollier, a barfly Craig Dollier, a good friend of mine. We've shared many, many, many drams over my dining room table, and I'd like to raise a wee glass to Craig Dollier. I hope he's in. He tends to watch and not chat, but he's often here, and he does say hello from time to time. But it's his birthday today. I'd like to raise a wee dram and say happy birthday, my friend Craig Dollier, and fellow barfly. I hope you're having a good one, big guy. Slant you. Also, coincidentally, I've got another friend down in Ayrshire, Colin Jameson. I know that you pick these up from time to time. I hope that you're having a good birthday today as well. Many happy returns, my friend. Greg's Whisky Guide is saying Yamazaki Distiller's Reserve is a wine-finished malt, decent, but only the shadow of what the brand used to be. The 12-year-old is back. It's absolutely, there's no question, Greg, it's a non-age statement. It's one that they brought out because they had to. It wasn't good from the start, and I think that's the reason that it lasted so long in my collection, is that I wasn't particularly enjoying it so much. So many barflies wishing Craig a happy birthday. Fantastic, my friend. I hope you're having a good one, whatever you're doing. Hopefully you're out having a nice dram and maybe something spicy. So if anybody was to ask me advice on that kind of thing, I think it's directly related to how much whiskey you get through, how much of a collection you have. My collection is out of control, especially with the channel growing so quickly. The collection grows so quickly in tandem with that, and there's so many bottles open that it's hard to keep up. But it's easy to manage and respect that the good stuff, the things that I'm really enjoying, disappears. And it's almost like I don't think about it. It just takes care of itself. The stuff that's left to last for years, as I've shared with you here, is clearly things that I didn't fully connect with. I didn't enjoy so much. Reb Mordecai is in. Good to see you, Reb. And he's saying, no, oxidation has a big effect. Many cask strength independent bottlings are too harsh when first opened. Superb, Reb. It's like reading my mind. However, if you leave it 2 months and come back to it, it has really calmed down. 2 months in an open bottle, absolutely. 20 minutes in an open glass. Honestly, how many times have we gone to the Scotch Malt Whisky Society, ordered a dram, they've cracked open a fresh bottle for us, they've poured it out of a tight bottle and given us the dram, and all we get is a tight dram that's not really giving anything up. All we're getting is a vague idea that it's cask strength whiskey and just ABV. Relax with it a while. Give it time. Order something different or softer or something that's been opened to let that whiskey relax a little bit. I'm going to use Reb's comment and that concept to point out exactly that thing. I have a bottle here that I've had for, I think, about 5 years. Let's say 4 or 5 years I've had this. This is a Signatory Vintage Longmorn. It's a 25-year-old from distilled in 1990, bottled in 2015. So there you go. I probably had it 4 years. I bought it in 2016, I think. It's 55.2%, but it plays like 65.2. It's very hot Longmorn. It's very hot on the palate. And I was disappointed when I first bought this. I bought it from the Whisky Exchange down in London when I was down there with the family, and I remember opening this in the hotel room, enjoying it from a glass, and I just felt it was just far too hot and too spicy. And And in time, I learned that I had to tame it with a lot of water to get it to a point where I was enjoying that kind of nice Longmorn kind of tropical fruitiness, especially when it's from a hogshead like this one. And I did get to that stage with it, but that's the one I've been pouring and raising tonight. And I tried it quite recently, and it's actually this bottle that gave me the idea to talk about this subject on a live stream, because I poured it and it's transformed. Now, I know that we're talking about us and our palates transforming over time, and there could be some of that, but I don't think so. This is, in this half-open bottle, this has started to behave like you expect a Longmorn to behave now. It's much rounder. It's still complex. There's still a lot going on here, and it's still very spicy, but it's much more approachable now. It's settled down. I'm not suggesting it's going to take 4 years for these whiskies to settle down. Typically, this has taken a long time, but there are few signature vintage bottlings that would last in my collection for 4 years, believe me. But this one has. But now that I'm enjoying it as much as I am now, it's going to disappear. And because the spice and the heat of the spirit has subdued, so that you're getting the fruit that you used to get when you added a bit of water. But when you added that water to tone down the heat of the spirit, you lost some of the dimensions, I feel. You lost some of the things that you can taste now. I'm getting a kind of Dunnish note. I'm getting old leathers and things that tell me that this is an old whiskey from 1990 that's been matured for 25 years. It's starting to, these are things that I think were hidden behind that heat. So this is something that, this is a positive experience. So the Yamazaki was very, very negative to me. Whereas this has kind of been left for long enough to really become alive. And it's very, very interesting that that's happened. Very similar story to this. I've had this 5 or 6 years. This is a Kalila unpeated. This is part of the Diageo special releases that they put out every year. We all know the solid product that Kalila puts out, especially at cask strength. There's lots of it about. You can buy this from a number of independent bottlers very regularly. Thank goodness that we can. It's wonderful stuff. But this is unpeated Kalila, which I always found was bizarre. But I was over in Ireland. I think it was when I was over in 2015. I bought this because I was curious, and I didn't enjoy it so much. And it didn't really fit. I didn't understand why it existed unpeated Kalila. But as time's gone on, I've started to really enjoy this. And I think what I'm getting to is that cask strength whiskies do seem to change faster. And it's got so much to do with how much space there is in the bottle. More than that, how many times you do this. And let the air in the bottle out and fresh air in, especially if you're pouring it, you're forcing that air to empty and fresh air to come back in. So we're not even talking about keeping it sealed and corked with a certain amount of air in it. We're talking about constantly recycling that air and the effect that that can have to change and allow the whiskey to develop in the glass. Whiskey, of course, doesn't mature in a bottle. Whatever age it is when it goes into that bottle, legally, it stays that age. But there's no doubt that it changes. We all accept and we all know from our experience enjoying whiskies that it does change in time. I wouldn't personally recommend anybody gasses whiskey. Everybody's each to their own. I don't have any experience of gassing it, so I'm probably not the best person to ask. But it's not for me. It's fussy, and I've got so many bottles open, and I wouldn't necessarily remember which had gassed and which I hadn't. But the Scotch Test Dummies are doing an interesting experiment that annually they've got some whiskies that I think is Lafroig that they're comparing side by side, some gassed, some ungassed, with control bottles and things in there as well. And they're having some interesting results from it. But there are far more experienced people out there that do, like when I was talking about Chris over at Liquor Hound, that do recommend gassing, especially when you've got a vast collection like Chris has. But I never, ever recommend it. I recommend that what we try to do is find our balance in our own collections. Not all of us are opening whiskey for a YouTube channel, right? We're opening it to drink it and share it. And when we've got the right amount of open bottles, we need to try and focus more on kind of drinking them and finishing them off rather than continuing and ending up in a situation where you've got open bottle syndrome, which is something that I suffer from chronically, believe me. Medicine, Aquavita, same experience with gas. It's too difficult to organize. It's just another fussy thing. It's another layer of something to do. It's why I don't have whiskey in tubes or boxes or bottles. I don't want to go through that ceremony or that fuss of pulling it out every time. I want to see the level. I want to see the color of the liquid. I want to see the whiskey. So I always kind of take it out as soon as it's been opened. It comes out of its packaging and the packaging gets tossed. Everyone is saying, ahoy, good to see everyone, good to see my friend. He's saying, been lurking on my drive home, but now I'm at the computer, good for you. Does anyone else have trouble remembering what whiskey tastes like, especially one you haven't had a long time ago? I think I have difficulty remembering specific complexities, let's say, but I've usually got a very good memory of the profile of the whiskey and any kind of loud or forceful or forward notes. I tend to know whether it was fruity or certainly I remember the levels of peat and things like that. I tend to remember if it's floral or green or spicy. Or I remember kind of a vague profile. But it's interesting, absolutely, Chris, because we are changing all the time. Our palate is continually changing. So even our memory is often betrayed a little bit when we go back to a whiskey and try it again. And we can think that perhaps we've forgotten when maybe it's just a simple case of us changing a wee bit. Donner Pass Tim is saying, rather than gas, I use small bottles filled all the way to preserve whiskey long term instead. Then I can drink the bottle as I please. Again, that's another thing that we touched on. It's a good practical solution, absolutely. Jimmy Legg is saying, I can get the same bottle that Aquavita was holding up for $130. Is that a goal? The Longmorn, $130 if it's the Longmorn you're talking about. That sounds like a bargain for it, honestly. It's 25-year-old Longmorn. But there are, in my experience, there have been better Longmorns. But it's just purely mine. This is fantastic now, but I've had to wait a long time. Andrew Butler is saying, I have 447 bottles open at the moment. Andrew, we could be open bottle syndrome brothers. I don't think I have 447. In fact, I know for a fact I don't. Does that count as vast? I would say that's vast. That's beyond manageable. But it depends what you do. If you have lots of folk coming to your house and tasting, if you share your whiskey a lot, if you're tasting a lot, if you're active in your whiskey collection, maybe it's something that's manageable for you. But I'd say 447 is too much by a factor of about 10 if you are just sitting at home enjoying whiskies on your own. I would say anywhere between a dozen to 2, 3, 4 dozen bottles maximum for a man to have open, or a woman, for a person, for a whiskey appreciator to have open at home, drinking on their own that doesn't share a lot of it. I would say that 447 is kicking the backside out of it, honestly. But good for you, because at the end of the day, it's all about your own personal experience and what you're enjoying, honestly. Wayne McCoy is saying, maybe you should have a kill the bottle vPub. Good idea. I tend to kill bottles, but what I do now is because of the Heels thing with recycled reviews, I tend to pour off into little sample bottles. But oftentimes I just forget and I enjoy the last dram myself, or I share it out, and I do tend to kill things off. I don't know how much good viewing it would be. Not that this is good viewing, what you're watching right now. Wonder what Charlie McLean's doing. Should we give him a ring and ask him to drop in? Stewie Baby is saying, do you have an app that you use to catalog your bottles? No, I used to mess around with apps. It's just another admin point for me. I've got too much admin going on generally with the channel and various things that I used to get a kick out of cataloging my collection on a spreadsheet and apps and Whiskey Base and all. And I got a wee bit fed up. I didn't even get to the point that I completed a collection in any of those formats. So I don't, Stewie, I don't keep up with it, I'm afraid. Michael is saying, we've got 130 open. Again, not as fast as is there a chap, I can't even remember, 147, who was it now? I must be tired. My memory is certainly failing me these days. Royale is saying, each to their own and all that, but the gassing thing sounds like a step too far for me. Just drink more whiskey. Yes. Menno is saying, I sometimes have the opposite. Sometimes out of the blue, a memory of a taste of whiskey just forms in my mouth while I'm doing something completely not whiskey related. I do the same thing. Menno, it's crazy that that can happen. And it's not necessarily because you're around food or whatever that there's those kind of flavors are there. You just have this flavor that appears. It happens to me as well. I'm so glad that I'm not the only one. I know that I'm not, because I've spoken to people about it in the past. Kev Grant and Whisky is here. Good to see you, Kevin. Kevin, we got to hang out, and I got to see 4 guys that came over from Holland. I got to see Dave. I got to see Tom. I got to see Mark and Marjen. I think I'm pronouncing that right, Marjen. And the 4 of them, sorry, went off to Campbelltown and Isla and had a fantastic time and went home. Kevin hosted them at the Scottish Gantry in Stirling. I was able to drop in and have a quick handshake and say hello. That was fantastic. That was about a week ago. Good for you, Kevin. Good hospitality, my friend. This is cousin Kevin I'm talking about. Jimmy Legg is saying, once whiskey is in your brain, it never leaves. Fantastic. I agree, Blair. I have to agree that once you connect with a whiskey, once you've kind of had your time with it and had a moment with it, it does kind of hang around. It's quite amazing. It's obviously kicking out all the other things that's in my head. Spirit Works Tom, the same Tom. I got to hang out with Tom this week as well, just last night. Great guy. On about 120 open now. I'm starting to think I need to cap it, as you say, and keep the number stable. I was like that for a long time, and it was interesting that it was about that number that I started to get really anxious about it. And now I'm not anxious. Now I don't care. If I lose some and they start to flatten out like these, then, you know, it's because I'm enjoying so many other whiskies. It's not like I'm starving myself and letting them go flat. There's just too many whiskies to enjoy. So why pick the whiskies that you're enjoying less? Enjoy the ones that are good and are giving you that nice experience. David Onison got 10 open and around 20 full bottles closed, and a helter-skelter of smaller closed and open bottles. Yeah, the sample collections gets bigger and bigger all the time. Richard Hall is saying, met up with Whiskey Freedom via Aquaviti for a tasting with a few others. Would be good to get together sometimes. Well, that's happening all over the place. We don't want to say the C word, the thing that's threatening us all getting together right now, but it's happening all over the place, and it's fantastic. And it's not necessarily things that are happening around the channel, but there are things just happening everywhere. The Belgian guys all got together in Ghent recently. That was fantastic. The London Whiskey Club are constantly getting together. I got to join them this week. It's happening all over the place, Richard, and it's great to hear that you're managing to hook up as well. And it's great to hear that you're able to make those connections within the lounge, within this chat as well. Whiskey Games Matt is saying, what about the option of infinity bottles or trying to blend whiskies with the remaining drams in a few bottles? I actively encourage people to do that, because at the very least, it makes you appreciate just how difficult a job successful blending actually is, because you screw up your infinity bottle more often than you make a good one, in my experience anyway. But that's a whole other topic that we could talk about at length, and we have touched upon it. Zach Andrews has bought me a virtual dram and said, come on, Barflies, smash the like button. Yes, thank you very much. If you do feel like you want to hit the like button, it very much helps me and the YouTube universe. Matt E is saying, Aquaviti, what about closed bottles? I think, Matt, did we meet this week? I think you're the Matt that I met last night. What about closed bottles? I tried some 1910s blend recently, which was weird, but fairly fresh. I suspect bottle aging becomes negative after a certain point. Good to meet you last night. Yes, we did meet. Fantastic, Matt. It was a pleasure to meet you too. I'm just going to raise a glass and say thank you to Zach for his virtual dram. As I move on to something very interesting that you can help me with tonight. I have here, I'm starting to get quite cluttered. I need to make some space. So we'll move some of these open bottles to the side. I make a bit of space for these three gorgeous looking things. So what I have here first is I have I've taken these out of the box. These came in their box. They look really nice in the box as well, but I wanted to let you see these. This is a Chivas Regal that says 75 CL on the label, so we can trust that this is somewhere in the order of the 1970s. It could be early 80s, this bottle. The reason it's making me think it's early 80s is that we have a barcode on here. 75 CL had to be put on the label from, I think, 1980, but this still also has 26.4 fluid ounces written there and 75 degrees proof. So it could be that this is a 1970s bottle of a Chivas Regal 12-year-old. So what we're probably fairly guaranteed that what's in here is 1960s distillate. It's completely sealed. It's in good condition. The fill level is good. This is a very well looked after bottle. I would be fairly confident that if we opened this, there's a good chance that the whiskey inside would be free of contamination and be still quite fresh. I know this looks like the exact same bottle I'm picking up, but it's not. It's actually quite different. I don't know if you can see, but the one is actually quite a bit fatter than the other. I don't know if you can see there. This one that I've picked up, the second bottle, is slightly bigger in bulk. Same style of bottle and everything, but there's no barcode here on this one. And what we see on the label here, it's 26 2/3 fluid ounces is written here, 75 degree proof, no mention of ABV, nothing to do with the metric system at all. And a few other clues on this tells us that this is probably from the 60s, potentially into the very early 70s, which tells us that the distillate in here is more likely to be 1950s distillate. Now, I'm not an expert on these things. I don't know exactly, but based on my kind of limited poking around research, interesting. This is completely flat on the base. This has got a very interesting little kind of dimple in the bottom. I don't know what that's about. It must be something to do with the glass manufacture. It's a very nice bottle as well. It's underneath. It's got Chivas Brothers Limited, Aberdeen, Scotland. Liquor bottle. It's fascinating to look at these things. Really fascinating. And this is all kind of metric stamps and things on this one. And see the difference there. So I'm going to open one of these tonight, and it's down to you which one of these I open. And I'm going to throw a third one into the mix for choice as well. And I should have spent a bit more time researching this, but I kind of ran out of time. But I've also got a Johnnie Walker Red here, and you can see the patina on this bottle. It's a wee bit tarnished, but like the other two I've showed you, the fill level is still very good. The seal is very intact. It's just really aesthetic. It's just the labels and things. The chat has stopped. I need to catch up with you guys. But this is a gorgeous looking thing. I think it's beautiful. This is the rounded Johnnie Walker bottle. It doesn't have the sharp square edges. It's still square bottle, but it's rounded. It's very nice to hold. I like the noise it makes. And I just love the way it looks. And Johnnie Walker himself is walking in this direction. He's walking into the past. And as you know, he's been flipped around in more recent decades to be walking that way. I think this is late 60s. Going by, and it's an import. This looks like a German product that's come back into the UK from Germany. It actually says it might be Austrian, actually. I'll let you guys read that label on the back, all you German speakers out there, and you can tell me maybe that's just a company name. But it's export strength at 43%. And I think this is 1960s bottling and 1960s distillate that's in this Johnnie Walker Red as well. So one of these is going to be open tonight, but I'll open it and I'll pour samples off for you guys, and I'll share some with some of you guys in the lounge and send some out to you for the people that are interested to try something like that. Because what we're studying here is Reb touched upon as... And I've forgotten again. I must be very tired after all my whiskey adventures recently. Is we're talking about what's happening to whiskey in a sealed bottle. As I've already mentioned, it doesn't mature, but once it goes in that bottle, it definitely changes. How much it changes has got so much to do with the integrity of the bottling in the first place, the liquid that goes inside, and how it's been looked after over its life. If it's kept in a reasonably stable environment where it's not getting too freezing cold or too hot, and there's not a lot of bright light around and things, then it's going to stay in decent condition. As you can see, all of these are still in very, very good condition. And this is just a remarkable way to sip history, to give you some insight what whiskey perhaps tasted like once upon a time and how it's potentially changed. But it's sometimes difficult to taste the difference between a snapshot in time from back then, and potentially what we're tasting now, where it's developed in the bottle, where it has changed. It's a chemical soup. It's going to continue to change over time, even although it's in fairly inert glass. In the Old and Rare show in 2018, Angus McRailed poured for me, asked for his recommendation, and he poured for me a blended malt whiskey from 1905. So it was bottled 100, what were we talking about then? Over 110 years before it was opened. It was sealed for 110 years. What was amazing about it is that whiskey was 1884 distillate. There was a 21-year-old age statement on there. Blended malt whiskey by Hoey, Hoey. Quite a few people I knew got to taste it at that show. Angus was raving about it. But it was remarkably fresh, very tropical, very fruity. And I remember just savouring and savouring and savouring that whiskey so much, and fully aware of how special it was. What a treat that whiskey was I was sipping. 19th century whiskey. And I took it into a tasting. I've told this story many times. I apologise if you're hearing it before. But I took it into a tasting, and I got sat next to Ingvar Rond, the guy who writes this malt whiskey yearbook. That's Ingvar there, a Swedish guy, a gentleman, really nice to talk to. And I was sitting next to him, and he asked, "Why are you bringing a whiskey into the tasting? Is there not enough whiskey here for you?" And I said, "Look," I said, I realise it's probably not the correct protocol, but this is an 1884 distillate, 21-year-old bottled 1905, and I want to savour it." And he said, "Wow, can I try some?" And he sipped some as well, and he agreed with me fully that it was remarkably intact and bright and fresh. Having said that, I have opened some old bottles of whiskey malts and blends that have been not fresh. Maybe the seal has been compromised. Maybe it's if it's a cork bottle, maybe the corks become damaged, or something happens. If you look over my shoulder here, there's a bottle given to me by Kevin, who's in tonight, Kev Grant and Whiskey, my cousin Kevin. He picked this one up, and we tried this. We had it together. And this isn't tasting nice. It's a 17-year-old Deanston. Looks like it's from the 1980s. Yeah, it's not a whiskey that you want to go back and enjoy again. There is an off taint, but I think it's more to do with probably the storage and the integrity of the bottle rather than any comment on the quality of the spirit. Everyone is saying, just had a taste of Jameson 12 that was given to me when I left a job back in 2010. Been open ever since, just under half in the bottle, a bit softer, but very, very pleasant. I agree fully. That's exactly what I'm talking about, and that tends to be the majority of the time. That's exactly the experience, everyone. That it's going to change a bit, it's going to soften out, it's going to round out, but it's going to stay whiskey. Gregor is in, good to see you, saying Aquavita, definitely the open bottle syndrome and open them all. Yes, Skogsmad is saying, what do you have in the small bottles on the shelf over your left shoulder, right side of the screen? So here I've got some Sevi, the Alchemist samples that I've still not shipped out because I only just worked out with Sevi this week who they were there for, who are they for. And here I've got a range of, I think it was Rico, if my memory serves me right. This is a vertical flight of Linkwoods that I'm very much looking forward to getting some time of an evening to sit down, and I would love to try those all back to back. If that's the small bottles that you're talking about. The small bottles here are from Gregor McQuee, and that's a blind set. It's a blind, it's set up in the Aquavita Blind Challenge style. And Gregor, myself, Vin, Phil and Deepa, Sevi the Alchemist, Scott Monroe, Kilted Moose, we're all trying to find a night that we can get together and do that on a live stream, actually, perhaps on the Aquavita channel, but more likely the No Nonsense Whiskey channel, to do that live blind tasting live, which I think would be great fun. Squinningy again, it's good to see my friend. He's saying, I have a rule that I only have a maximum of 15 70cl bottles. Good for you. Open at any one time. I could never do that. And he's saying, however, I do have well over 1,000 3CL library samples of the bottles I have enjoyed. See, you're disciplined, and I'm jealous of that discipline. Obviously, with the channel and things, it would make it difficult for me to, even if I could do that, I would make it practically difficult. But that's quite amazing that you're able to keep it at that level. And I guess you're never going to get to the stage where you're sipping a whiskey and wondering if it's past its best. Bud Jenkins, good to see you, buddy, saying, how do you find these old bottles? I'm thinking I need to post a wanted advertisement. These are these are very widely available. You can buy these on the Whisky Exchange. You can buy them on Master of Malt. Probably pay a bit over the odds from a specialist retailer like those guys or whatever, because they're buying them and stocking them on the shelf. But you can also pick them up at auctions. So any country that does alcohol auctions, whiskey auctions like the UK, you can pick up these blends. Depending on the blend, some go a bit more expensive than others. But the stuff there's lots of it out there, like the Johnny Walkers, the J&Bs, the Chivas Regals and things, you can usually get for a very good price. Do your research first to try and understand the subtle differences between labels and things, and maybe you can get a bit picky over what you actually decide to go for in the end. But there's a lot of these old timers out there that's still very reasonable. I was talking about this last night with the London Whisky Club, is that it's a good time to get a hold of those because they're not going to be around forever, I think. They'll get replaced with other ones, I guess. But yeah, things from the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, certainly the 70s, 80s, and 90s, lots of that around. And Rico, at least I got that one right. He's saying yes, the link is from me. Thank you, Rico. There's just so much going on, so many things coming in, and it's really difficult to keep up. I'm just very pleased that I sometimes remember people's names. Ben Marnick is here. Good to see you, Ben. Good to have you. Welcome you in again. He's saying another live blind tasting. Yes, please. Off to bed now. Keep healthy, everyone. That's a lovely sentiment, Ben. And Ben is actually my friend Ronnie. Slant you and have a good night, my friend. Okay, so let's do the decent thing. Tell me, what would you be more interested in? This 1960 Johnny Walker Red, the whiskey everybody loves to beat up on, but I'm personally I'm a fan of Johnny Walker Red. It has its place and it does its job very, very well. Chivas Regal, we've got from, I believe it to be late 70s, early 80s, so 1960s distillate Chivas Regal. There's an age statement on this, whereas the Johnny Walker is an non-age statement. So we know that the minimum, the youngest element component in this bottle will be from the 60s. I'd be very surprised if there was anything in there from the 70s. And we've got something here that's probably a bit older and is more likely to have 50s distillate in it. I'm happy to open any of these tonight, and I'll fully do the red. It's the oldest. Actually, Menno, the oldest distillate is going to probably be the Chivas Regal, which is why it's interesting. Chris Mear is saying the Johnny Walker. Wow, okay. Whiskey Radar is here saying, hi, Roy, just managed to finally join tonight. Good to see you though, Roland. I just had a lovely Rama's you in 1980, 34 year olds with a dear friend. That sounds like a fantastic way to spend time with a dear friend. Superb. Chris Mear is saying the Johnny Walker, as I've mentioned. Johnny Walker Red, Marku Johnny Walker. Hoyt wants the 1950s Chivas Regal, oldest Chivas Regal 12. Johnny Walker versus Chivas Regal 12. Now you're talking. That's the London Whisky Club. I'm going to assume that that's Jez. I'm going to open these and I'm going to get you up to speed what I've been up to over the last couple of weeks as I open these old timers. I've only got one clean glass, and no, I've maybe not got. I used the clean glass for the Gagetown Rye, so I'm going to get two clean glasses. And I will sip these side by side as I chat to you guys and talk to you. So after the come down after the Charlie McLean live stream, which I enjoyed very, very much, I spoke to Charlie since. He was very, very happy to do it, and he's very, very happy to do it again. He got a real thrill out of it. He's really impressed by you guys, the community, the generosity, and all the wonderful donations that you guys put forward to the Broer campaign for his sons, who rowed across the Atlantic in 35 days, raising all that money for water for Madagascar and for Children First in the UK. I doff my cap to you guys. The generosity that you showed following that link and going along and donating to the cause was beyond expectation. It's just wonderful. I should expect nothing less from you. I know how generous you are, but that was wonderful to see. Thank you all so very, very much for your donations. Charlie was super chuffed with the community in general, with how well the live stream went, and he would be very happy to do it again. So if we come up with a suitable angle, a nice theme, something that would do it justice, I would love to have Charlie back on again. But I took a break for a few days, and then just over a week ago, or it was a week ago tonight, I went to the Scotch Malt Whisky Society, one of their opening nights in Glasgow. That's got a nice feel about it. I was quite enjoying that. I was looking forward to seeing what they were going to do for us in Glasgow, and they seem to have done quite well. I've since bought a bottle, and I've tucked it in my bottle keep there. So that would suggest it's someplace that I'm going to frequent, and it looks like I'll perhaps get a chance to go there tomorrow night. I actually can't see how to open this. Is this screw top? You have to be very, very careful opening these old bottles. And I don't have the correct tools to do it properly tonight, so we'll make do with some scissors, I think. There doesn't seem to be an easy pull tab. So that was a really nice night. And let me tell you what happened there. A familiar face came walking into the scene as they were doing a kind of presentation, and they were chatting, and there was a speech going on. And I recognised immediately that I was looking at Kirsty McCallum. Now, anybody that knows who Kirsty McCallum is, she worked at Distell for a number of years at Burn Stewart, working at Deanston, creating whiskies at Deanston, at Tobermory. Well, of course, that would mean Leitchik as well, and Bunnahabhain. And as far as I was concerned, she could do no wrong. The whiskies that she was making was, for the most part, absolutely wonderful whiskies. And I always joked that if I ever met Kirsty McCallum, I'd never met her, I'd never bumped into her on any of these events, that I didn't know if I would be professional enough to just give her a polite handshake, or whether I would go all out fanboy on her and give her a big sloppy kiss and a thank you. And interestingly, Scott, Kilted Moose, he's a music journalist. He meets a lot of bands and things, and he interviews them. And he says that the professional thing to do is to talk to them in a professional manner first, get the job done, and then tell them afterwards if you're a fan and say thanks or whatever, and kind of fanboy after the professional work is done. And he told me that very night, and then I still went out and I lost it with Kirsty McCallum. I went totally fanboy on her. I gushed out about how I loved the work that she did at Deanston. I was interested to hear what she was going to be doing at Glenmurray. And it was really, really nice to chat to her, and I found it fascinating. I wonder if I could ever attempt Kirsty McCallum to come on the live stream. You never know, perhaps maybe she'll want to talk about what she's doing at Glenmurray. Okay, I'm finally getting the foil off of this old Chivas Regal. It's been a bit of a... and it looks like it's a screw top. But I didn't know if it was a screw top or not, so I didn't want to just force it, because if it's a cork, it can be dangerous. But it is a screw top. It smells healthy. I think that one's in good shape. Leave it for a wee minute. It's going to be a hell of a lot easier to open this old JW Red. Maybe not as easy as I imagined. There we go. Again, nothing too off-putting on the nose. So there we are, 60s JW Red open, and 60s/50s Chivas Regal open. So that was a really nice night at Scotch Malt Whisky Society. Got to hang out with Sevy there, and Kilted Moose, a few other guys as well. It was great to meet Gareth and Alan, and so many of you hanging out at that event. It was a terrific night. And then this week, things have been crazy whiskey-wise. On Tuesday night, it was the Whisky Club. We had an event that was hosted by Single Cask Nation. Jason Josh in the States, some of you might know, but Jess is now looking after the product outside of North America. She hosted a tasting for us there. My dram of the night was actually a rum that she shared. Found it to be fantastic. A rum from Angostura, 17 years old. Really nice. Then Wednesday was last night. I jumped on a plane yesterday and I flew down to the London Whisky Club. I've been to the London Whisky Club barbecue before, but it was the first time I'd been to one of their tastings, their events, and it was one I really couldn't miss. Jess had invited me down to join their closed distillery. So we had Little Mill, we had Imperial, we had Banff, we had an Old Guns blend, which is rumoured to have a huge 2/3 Port Ellen in there. We had fantastic whiskies and fantastic times with a fantastic, as I like to call the London Whisky Club, a whisky family. It was wonderful, wonderful fun. And yeah, the amount of guys that I got to meet there, it was just all these known faces. It was wonderful. Really, really nice. And the whiskies that we shared were beyond trying to pick a favourite dram when you're looking at a 1975, what was that, 1975 Imperial against a 1977 Banff, against a 1970s Little Mill. Just incredible. Capardonic, Zach Andrews wanted to know about the peated Capardonic. It's very tasty, very fresh, very interesting peated whiskey. There's only 15ml pours. I've got a bottle of it here, Zach, somewhere. I don't know if it's in shot, but I've got that Capardonic. In fact, there it is there. Can't work out how to, that's it there. So if that ever gets cracked in the near future, Zach, make sure you remind me, and I'll certainly be happy to share a sample with you. Okay, I've got a dram of each of these poured. The Johnnie Walker's in the clear glass, and this Edward Hour glass is holding the Chivas Regal. It's a wee bit sour, if I'm honest. Old bottle effect is there. It's definitely whiskey from an old bottle. Anybody that's had experience of that style of whiskey would put their nose in that right away, and that Johnnie Walker, and spot it as such. So Leanna's saying that she's absolutely right. The Chivas Regal 12 is much fruitier and fresher and less sour. Leanna's saying, Scotch on the Bayou, saying, look at the pics from last night on your Instagram, those bottles and hand sanitizer. Yes. Jimmy Leg is saying, do you have a long 116 green box? That is one you like, correct? Yes, I do. I think it's here. Yes, there. It's out of its box because I just like looking at the bottle. And the Longbourn 16 in the green box has got a really dangerous box. It's a magnet opening, and it opens kind of almost like a flap hinged fashion. And certain ways that you pick it up, it can tip forward. And a lot of bottles that you buy at auction, people have been caught out by that, and you can see tears along the back where the bottle has flipped. Now, not enough to tip the bottle out, fortunately, but it was a bad design. That Long 116 box, be wary of it. It's a bad design. Norpass Whisky saying, getting bottles like this is definitely a go for me. SWA in Glasgow has them going to try and bid on some so I can pick up when I'm there in June and bring them home. That's a great idea, Tim. I think you should do that, and you shouldn't. Don't get caught up just because, we're talking about it. You're going to go to the next auction. These are in every auction. And there are a lot of auctions. SWA is just one of them, Scotch Whisky Auctions. Get Whisky Auctioneer. There's a number of whiskey online auctions out there, and they all tend to have these style of whiskies in there. The Chivas Regal is smelling gorgeous. Johnnie Walker Red, some more off notes and faints in there. You could convince me there's a wee bit of smoke on this. Let's have a wee sip. That's fantastic. The old bottle effect is there. There is a sour layer, but it's not completely off-putting. This is the texture's a little bit thin, but the finish is long despite it. It's soft. It's utterly integrated. I might be able to pick this out as a blend, even given the age and things. But I think more likely would be that somebody would pour this and say, here, this is quite this is a well-aged whiskey. So despite it being not well-aged, despite it being fairly young with maybe some older components in there when it was bottled, now it's behaving and tasting like something much older than a Johnnie Walker Red has any right to behave like. Be interesting to see how this ages in the bottle. I think as this level drops, I don't think it's the type of thing that you could leave. It might be a wee bit fragile. So despite that OBE, despite those off notes, the slight sourness, I get the feeling that that's going to dissipate because there's lots of things going on here. There's a little bit of fresh fruit. The texture is thin. It is thin. What is this, 43%? I would like it to hang around a wee bit longer. But it's delicious, very elegant, very, very Moorish. Let's try a wee bit of the Chivas Regal right on the back of it. Whoever gets a wee sample of this is going to really love it. I think you'll really enjoy it. And you can taste, absolutely, you can taste its age. Or let's say taste its era. That's a better way to put it. This glass is obviously one I've been using for blind tasting. There's a wee blue dot underneath. This is much fruitier and brighter. There's far less OBE going on in this. Lovely fruit, lovely, soft sultana raisin, some sponge, some sherry-soaked sponge, some light ginger and pepper. Longer on the finish, a wee bit more texture. Still quite thin. It's not heavy and oily like a. I'll try and show you in the glass if you can pick out. I don't know if it's going to focus on that. It does look quite oily in the glass, but on the palate, it's not. It's slightly thinner. No, it's better. This is oilier. This has got more texture. It's got more body than the Johnnie Walker. Okay, now the Johnnie Walker's gone all walnuts and nuts and dust. This is fabulous. I have to say, this is wonderful. I'm so glad that I've finally opened these, and they're really good. They're really, oh wow, just nuts, walnuts. What's the big nut? Brazil nuts. See what you guys are saying. My goodness, Whisky Novice is saying any cream. If so, that's a trifle you have there, isn't it? The thing. Sometimes I'm sitting down there and I'm describing a bowl of muesli or something. Let's see. Does this particular? This is Mart S. That looks like a new name. Good to see you, Mart. He's saying, does this particular JW Red contain Kalila as well? I think perhaps there's a very good chance that it would. Not a lot of it. It's quite quiet. I did say at the start that you could convince me that there's smoke. So the Chivas Regal, there's not even a phantom of smoke, but on the Johnnie Walker, there's a puff of smoke. This is terrific whiskey. It's beautiful whiskey. Very, very glad I've been lucky with these bottles. Good integrity, fresh, still quite fresh. Skogsmard is saying, Aquavita, are you sure? You sound a little bit like a nutter. Don't we all, Skogsmard? If anybody was a fly in the wall that isn't into whiskey, they're not inside the whiskey bubble, and they had to listen to us talking about whiskey and what we're tasting in a glass, they would clearly think that we were nuts. That's the kind of people that I like to hold by the hand and lead them on a wee bit and say, give me some time, give me a sliver of an open mind, and I will change your life, and I'll change how you're tasting things. I'll change how you're enjoying whiskey, and I'll change how you perceive whiskey drinkers. We're not talking about whiskey drinkers. We're talking about people who taste rather than drink, of course. David Owen say, didn't Ralphie do a video a few years ago comparing a 60s Johnny Walker and a new Johnny Walker? It was a cracking video, one of my favourite all-time Ralphie videos. He absolutely did. It's one of his first videos from his first year of doing YouTube as well. I recommend that everybody goes back and watches that. Chris Meara is saying, are you quite surprised by the Johnny? Okay, I've had old Johnny Walkers before. I've had old Johnny Walker Reds. I've had old Johnny Walker Black. Old Johnny Walker Blacks are fantastic. A couple of years ago, I did a live stream with, I think, 3 different Johnny Walker Blacks. So no, I'm not surprised. But what I am, Chris Meara, is that I am relieved. I'm relieved that they're good and enjoyable. Hoyt is saying it would be interesting to see how an old JW Green label would taste, like the side-by-side comparison. Yeah. Johnny Walker Green's a bit harder to get a hold of. I think there was a much, much older Johnny Walker Green than the more kind of recent releases, wasn't there? And I'm not sure how it's changed over time. I've never tried any old Johnny Walker Green, but I do enjoy modern releases of Johnny Walker Green, honestly speaking. They work very well in a blind lineup alongside malt. Trust me. Mark S is saying it is indeed the first time joining a live stream, and I'm certain it won't be the last. Thanks, Mark. Thanks for hanging out. I hope you're enjoying yourself okay. Wonderful to see so many of you giving me a wee thumbs up as well. Thank you so much. How are we getting on? Oh my goodness. 10 past 11. So I think I just need to work out a way to share this with you all now to just kind of work out how I get some samples out to you. So I'm going to have to come up with some kind of question. Oh. And I don't want to spoil anything I've put in the quiz for later. So the first person, I'm going to give out more samples than just one of each. I'll give out a few, but the first person to tell me in fluid ounces what's in this Chivas Regal bottle exactly can win a dram of the Chivas Regal. There you go. And I'll watch the chat coming up. And it's a lovely dram to try. I'm watching. Okay, good. Vicky Thompson is there. I need to try and stop that chat. Vicky Thompson, so many of you close 26.5 fluid ounces, 26, 24.6, 24, 26 and 3/4. It is indeed. Oh no. Sorry, Vicky. No. Oh wow, I didn't realise how difficult a question this actually was. Okay. I tell you what I'm going to need to do is I'm just going to need to I'm just going to need to go through and pick out whoever's got. So I'll pick the 3 that's ever got closest. But in fluid ounces in the old imperial measurements, I was looking for 26 2/3 fluid ounces. So I'll go through, as Hoyt has quite rightly pointed out, 26 2/3 as whiskey loving pianist has said as well. So it looks like you guys are up there, but I'll go through the chat after the event and I'll pick out who got closest. And I'll be quite liberal. I'm going to share out quite a few drams of these. You might just find yourself getting a wee surprise through the post, as often can happen. I'll reach out to you directly if I don't have your address and I'll send you some. And now for the Johnny Walker, I'll try and do something a bit less confusing, right? I should never try and do this off the cuff, my goodness. Okay. You would need to have tuned in last week to get this, but what was remarkable about this logo that we discovered on the live stream last week, is, if we didn't know in advance, what's remarkable about this Striding Man logo? What is remarkable about it? What did we discover on last week's live stream? Now, like I say, if you do know this, just answer. And I will be quite liberal with the samples. I'll share 2, 3, 4, I don't know, some of each to make sure that it gets spread about and we can all kind of enjoy these old timers. Different direction, walking backwards. Sell it bang, good to see Annie saying first world trademark. Absolutely. It was the first internationally, first globally recognized logo type. That's the answer I was looking for. So anybody, it has changed direction and all of these cool things has happened, but it was the first logo type. Jason Coates as well. He looks like he answered the question. Oldest globally known logo by Bud Jenkins. Absolutely. So there's a few of you going to grab yourself a wee dram of this 1960s Johnny Walker Red. I hope that's something that you're going to be interested in. I'm telling you, it's a treat. It's an absolute treat. Okay, good. I'm realizing the time, and I just seem to, the solo streams. I don't know what happens. The time goes just as fast as I've got a guest on. I don't know. Colours Blue Things is saying his wonderful hat. Good for you. Tristan History's here. He won Charlie McLean's book. I'm going to draw the other book as well from the comments. And I'll do that in an upcoming live stream. But what I'm doing is delaying the books a little bit. They're still sitting on the shelf here. Charlie has agreed to sign them and to dedicate them to the winner as well. So Tristan's going to get that book signed and dedicated to him. And I'll do the same with the person who wins the book from the comments as well. And I'll draw that on an upcoming vPub. I just haven't had time to curate the list. But I'm going over to see Charlie in Edinburgh, and that's when I'll get a chance to get him to sign the books. And I'm going to take my copy that I've had for a few years that I got from the Whisky Rev, and I'm going to get that one signed for me too. Silent Bang is saying, hooray, cheers, Roy. You're very welcome. Good for you. Okay, let's get the wheels on the quiz. There is a theme to the quiz tonight. Thank you for hanging out with me and indulging me. For those people that don't want to stay around for the quiz, by all means, you don't need to. It's just a good bit of fun. And I honestly think, I know I always say this, but I think it's an easy one tonight. A couple of potentially tricky questions. But honestly, I think the quiz is relatively easy for you very knowledgeable and very in tune whiskey folk. I just need to set it up quickly. I didn't get a chance to do all of this earlier, but we should be able to drop in if the Wi-Fi stays up. There we go. And quick screen share here. There we go. 10 questions, all multiple choice, as always. There's not usually a theme. The last week it was nice because the theme was everything was from Charlie's book. So everything in this quiz has a theme except for the pictorial question, which is always question number 5. And for those of you in the Barflies community that have joined the membership on the channel, please feel free to use all your emojis, all the Glencairns, all the banana skin emojis, whatever you find is appropriate. It's multiple choice, as I say, so everybody's got a chance, even if they don't know, of guessing correctly. Share your scores as we go along, and I'll shout out the guys and girls who are doing really, really well. Oh, it's not coming through for some reason. Give me 1 second. Try one more time. Okay, I've got it now. User trouble, no doubt. Let's see if we can see this. Good luck, everybody. Thanks for hanging around and staying for the quiz. And welcome Juan Quintanilla, all the way from Hawaii, who's just joined the Barflies group as well. It's very inexpensive. It's just intended as a bit of fun so that you've got access to emojis and things. And it does help support the channel a wee bit too. It's in no means, it's not intended in any way to take anything away from all the stuff I do inside Patreon for patrons. That's separate and sacrosanct. This is just a kind of a bit of fun as well. But welcome, Juan, and good luck, everybody, on the quiz. I can see Whisky Jason already in here and driving and telling me question 1. Here we go. Good luck, everybody. Question 1, which Pernod Ricard Chivas distillery still employs mostly traditional methods in order to provide apprenticeships? So this is where they are protecting their traditional methods in order to give people a training platform to learn traditional methods in distilling and whiskey production. Lavente Calmar, welcome to Aquavite Barflies, and thank you for your support, my friend. Okay, the choices are, is it Glenburgie, Glenkeith, or Glentochers? Which of those 3 Pernod Ricard distilleries still has traditional methods preserved in order to provide training for their staff? A, Glenburgie, B, Glenkeith, C, Glentochers. You only need to type in A, B, or C. You're keeping score yourself. Nobody else is keeping score for you. You're only playing against yourself. Might be interesting to see how this one goes. I think it's quite an easy one, as I've already said. And these blends are really, really elegant. Chivas Regal is getting nicer in the open glass as well. There's a chance that both of these bottles have been sealed since as long as I've been alive. It's quite unbelievable. Okay, I can tell you that Pernod Ricard still preserves traditional methods at C, Glentochers, in order to provide training for their staff. Luna Aaron's saying pure guess C. It was a good guess. Sillet Bang is saying a banana straight out the bat, but no, Sillet Bang, you got it absolutely right. No banana skin there. Jimmy Leg is asking what? A few other people did. Jimmy Jazz is in. I got to hang out with Jimmy last night down in London. He's over from the States. He's over from Boston. And he's coming up to Scotland on a train tomorrow. And I'm looking forward to hanging out with Neil Cochrane. I'm hoping is going to come along. I'm hoping that Aaron McFault is going to join us there. I'm hoping Sevi and Scott, and we'll get a little mini gathering out in Glasgow tomorrow night. So if you find yourself in Glasgow, get in touch. Might be able to meet up for a handshake and a dram. I say handshake. No, we're not going to talk about the C word. We're not going to talk about it. Okay, fantastic. Question 2. Which of these was once tied closely to the famous grouse blend? Was it A, Glenturret, B, Benromac, or C, Longmorn? So we're looking for a distillery that is almost, up until very recently, almost inseparable from the famous grouse blend. Was it A, Glenturret, B, Benromac, or C, Longmorn? Look at the speed of the answers coming in. Greg's Whiskey Guide has nailed it. He said, A for sure. Absolutely. I think everybody had seen a mini gathering, a jazz fest, a Jimmy Jazz Fest. That's right. Absolutely. Looks like almost everybody. Emil Oliver is going for F. He's probably just saying he's not really sure, so he's guessing F. But I can tell you that the visitor experience for the famous grouse used to be at Glenturret Distillery, so it was indeed A for Glenturret. But of course now Edrington has sold that on to the crystal manufacturer Lalique, I think it is, or the owner of Lalique Crystal, and they don't own it anymore. So now that famous attachment, that famous association is gone. And it's no longer a famous grouse visitor centre at Glenturret. So, moving on to question 3. I did drop this in earlier, so you should know this. Dr. Kirsty McCallum is the head of whisky creation for which distillery? Kirsty McCallum. Is she head of whisky creation for A, Deanston, B, Bladnoch, or C, Glenmurray? Where is Kirsty McCallum making whisky? I hope she can continue to do what she's been doing for years. I told you, it's too easy. It's too easy tonight. Michael Porter is saying he's gone with the crowd as he's no idea. Michael, you were in a wee bit earlier. You probably tuned out when I talked about me getting all fanboy on Kirsty. She's moved away on from Distell, and she's now working at Glenmurray. And I got to meet her last week. But she is working at Glenmurray, which is C. So if you answered C, give yourself a point. As we ask question 4, this is tricky, my goodness. Harbour is a 100% first fill bourbon expression from whom? So what I need you to do is consider the theme here. That's what's going to help you answer this really tough question. I don't know if anybody's worked out what the theme is. I think it's too nebulous maybe just now. But anyway, Harbour is 100% first fill bourbon expression from A, Scapa, B, Glen Scotia, or C, Tobermory. Now, I read a press release when this was released. It's been out for a while, a couple of years, I think. Maybe at least a year, let's say. And when it was released, I was very keen to get a hold of it. I was curious, but I couldn't get it, and I've still not happened across it. But I have seen images of it here and there, and other people have been able to get a hold of it. It's not difficult to get. It's just it's sold through very specific exclusive outlets, through certain supermarkets in the UK only. For example, Waitrose Marks and Spencer's. So it's not sold through traditional channels. But who is responsible for putting out an on-age statement, Harbour 100% first fill bourbon? Is it Scapa, Glen Scotia, or Tobermory? I'm looking at you, Vicky Thompson. I can tell you that B, Glen Scotia, is the answer. Glen Scotia is selling through Waitrose and Marks and Spencer's, and I don't know where else across Europe or beyond, but an interesting non-age statement I would be keen to try called Harbour. If you've got any intelligence on it, let me know. Question 5 is a pictorial question. Shout out to Connor Strang, who asked for this specifically. He said, can you take one of the famous coastal distilleries, perhaps an Islay distillery? Can you Photoshop out the big black letters from the side and tell us ask us what distillery we're looking at? Or along those lines is the question he was asking. So I'm going to ask you, what are we looking at here? Are we looking at A, Ardbeg, B, Laphroaig, or C, Lagavulin, one of the southern coast Islay distilleries? It's completely whitewashed. We can't tell. But normally you would have big, huge black painted lettering across the side of the warehouse there, so that the boats could see it even in misty weather. And but you have to tell me which one is it, you guys. Rico's saying, no idea, never been to a distillery. Look, even if you've not been to Ardbeg, there's something particularly iconic about that warehouse. And they even bottled, they released a bottling in a tin shaped exactly like that warehouse there. I'm not sure if it's a maturation warehouse these days. I don't know what's in that building now. But yeah, I was clearly looking for Ardbeg, and so many of you just made the chat light up there with an A. It's too funny. Ardbeg is the answer. So we're at a halfway point. How's the scores going? Jimmy Legg is on 3 out of 5. Dancing Midgie, good to have you in, Glenn, my friend. 5 out of 5, fantastic. Gixer Skipper is saying that roof, he's laughing. That's Luke. Marvin Michlitz. That looks like a new name, Marvin. Welcome in. Fantastic score as well. 5 out of 5. Ebhead, 3 out of 5. Kilted Moose on 4 out of 5. Wonder what banana skin you slipped up on, Scott. Desi is in, and she's on 5 out of 5 as well. Boy Whiskey, 4 out of 5. Alistair Gray, 5 out of 5. Great scores. I think it's a fairly easy quiz tonight. And there's Error on 3 out of 5. Error, I've tripped you up twice tonight, my friend. Oh my goodness, you can get me tomorrow night for that. Jens Rosger Christofferson, 5. Mark Slinger. Jason Coates. Marku Makinen, first pick that I knew and didn't guess. Good for you, Marku. Good for you. Well done, everyone. Good scoring all round. Let's move into the second half. Let's come in bring it back home. On question 6, which of the Glenmorangie expressions recently enjoyed an age hike to 14 years old? If you watch the Ralphie channel, you'll get this, no doubt, because he reviewed it very recently. I've yet to watch his review and get his thoughts on it, but I was curious to see what he thought about this. Which Glenmorangie review just got an age hike to 14 years old? Was it La Santa? Was it Quinta Ruban? Or was it Nectar d'Or? So with this core range at Glenmorangie, they tend to keep it in ex-bourbon for 10 years. And then what used to happen is it went into another cask for 2 years to release their core range, La Santa, Quinta Ruban, Nectar d'Or. But one of those 3 recently got bumped up to 14 years old. And interestingly, there's a couple actually now that actually state unchill filtered on the label. There's a couple that are out there at 46% ABVs. This is nice stuff from Glenmorangie, and we need to encourage it. And I think if we get a chance to try it, come at it with a fresh perspective and judge it, and forget about the fact that Glenmorangie 10 is one of my favourite drams. I still love it. I love this bright tropical pineapple freshness from it. I don't care that it's only 10 years old. I don't care that it's out of 40%. It's often easily affordable, and it's a solid, light whiskey. Sometimes not the most complex, but there are things there to enjoy. I'm curious about what Glenmorangie are doing in the direction they're going in, and I think you should be applauded for bringing good presentation. But I'm asking you now, what do you think? Is it La Santa, Quinta Ruban, or Nectar d'Or that got an age bump to 14 years old? And I can tell you, it was indeed Quinta Ruban. Port pipes finished after it's 10 years or so. In bourbon, it's gone into big port pipes. And yeah, I've yet to spend any time with it. I did try a pour, I tried a dram, and I enjoyed it very much. It'd be interesting to sit and spend a bit of time with it. Good scoring. Whiskey Novice is saying had the 10 earlier. Yep, still love it. Never forget the whiskies that start your journey. Always kind of, I know that we're going to move on and we're going to keep chasing the next epiphany and things, but we have to remember the good solid whiskies that are still bringing it out there, and remember not to diss them, because there are people that are having wonderfully valid, enjoyable experiences with some really whiskies that we consider completely two-dimensional. Number 7 is 46 is the SMWS distillery code 4. Now, I meant to tell you a story earlier in the live stream tonight that should have given this to everybody. However, if you've cottoned on to the theme tonight, it will definitely help you. Is A, Glenlossie, B, Benrinnes, C, Longmorn? The only question in the quiz tonight that isn't on theme is the pictorial question, which was the Ardbeg warehouse wall. All the rest is on point with the theme tonight, so it should help you answer straight away. Jimmy Legg is saying you are a weasel. Yes. So when I was at ISNWS, I took my wife back. We were out on a kind of date night on the Saturday night. I went on SWS and I bought a bottle. I got 3 drams blind, and I decided that the best one of the 3 blind was going to be the bottle I would buy and put behind. And I ended up picking a 25-year-old 46 from SMWS, but it wasn't actually too expensive. It was only £120, which I thought was okay, especially how much I enjoyed it blind against the other ones. And it was up against a 26-year-old Imperial as well. And I picked this over it. It was just very bright, fresh. Turned out to be 26 years in ex-bourbon refill, ex-bourbon, which is right up my street. I can tell you that 46 is Glenlossie. So you've probably worked out by now, all you astute barflies, that the theme throughout tonight's quiz has been Glen distilleries, Glen Scotia, Glenfiddich, Glenmorangie, Glenlossie, whatever the Glen is. That's been the theme. Tabitha Adams, 7 out of 7. Thomas Elmer, 7. Rico, 7. Scotty S, good to see you, Scotty, 7. Dancing Midgie, 7. Desi, 7. Royale 431, 7. Marku, 7. Yen, 7. Great scores tonight. Let's see how you got on for the last 3. Coquerin is not branded Glengyle after its distillery name because the location is not in a glen, another Scotch producer owns the Glengyle brand, or because Glengyle is actually an Indian whiskey. Coquerin is not called Glengyle because the producers say it's silly to call it Glengyle because it's not in a glen. B, another Scotch producer owns that brand, or is it because it's not a Scotch producer, it is in fact an Indian whiskey? What are we thinking? Glenn Duncan. Yeah, good to see you, Glenn. It looks like a new name. I'm way off. Thought the theme was whiskey. Good for you. Not always. What do we think? It is in fact B. Loch Lomond Group own the brand Glengyle. I don't know what they actually do with it. I've never actually seen a product out there. I think there was talks way back in the early days of Coquerin where they were talking about perhaps transferring the brand or doing something with it. They never came to anything. I'm kind of glad that we have Coquerin. I like the sound of Coquerin. I like the name Coquerin. It's a nice, good, strong name that we've become familiar with, and it's certainly one to trust and enjoy. We're loving everything that's coming out of Coquerin pretty much just now. It's fantastic stuff. But we're looking for B. If you answered B, give yourself a point, and we'll roll into question 9 and ask which distillery was once known as Glen Grant 2. This is in connection with Glen, of course, but also what I was up to last night and enjoying closed distillery drams. But which was once known as Glen Grant 2? Was it A, Imperial, B, Northport, or C, Capardonic? So we're talking about 3 closed distilleries now. Imperial, Northport, or Capardonic? Very happy to have these blends in the cabinet. Johnny Walker's settling nicely as well. Like I say, it's very Moorish. Very enjoyable. Lots of guessing going on here. Lasse Hjort Oatsman. That looks like a new name. Lasse. I'm going to guess that I'm pronouncing your name badly, but I'll give it a shot. Nice to welcome you in. He's saying C. Marku is saying C. One Glassman. Warner, you're in here tonight as well. So nice to see you. Fantastic to welcome you back again. Sid Martin, thanks C. Glenn Duncan, was it Glen Grant 3? Don't understand what you're saying, Glenn. I don't know what you mean. And Ebhead is saying this has been a question before. There are no doubt that there will be repeat questions from time to time, Rolf. Absolutely, my friend. Jason Coates is saying, Aquavita, have you tried 70s Dimple? If not, that's a good one to get hold of. Very cheap because there's buckets of it around, Jason. You're absolutely right. And I have often enjoyed a Dimple. The one I have is phenomenal, beats the 80s JW Black. Fantastic. There is a bit of a gamble with these old whiskies, and you need to kind of get the mindset that maybe you'll get a cracker and really love it and enjoy it and cherish it. And there's often that you could end up with something that the seal hasn't really kept its integrity over the years that could have gone a wee bit south on you. But as long as you're not paying too much, I think it's a nice, worthy gamble. And in my experience, most of the time it's paid off. I can tell you that indeed Glen Grant 2 was C, Cappadonic. Cappadonic was a name that came a long time after that distillery was built. It was just operating as a second distillery, as a second Glen Grant. And I got to taste, as I said last night down at the London Whisky Club, I got to taste, I think it was Sebastian that brought it along, a really tasty peated Cappadonic at 18 years old. Fantastic. I've got a bottle of it here. It was wonderful. But that is what was known as Glen Grant 2. And final question, question 10. I'll bring it up in a minute. I want to see who's still on 9 out of 9 at the end. I think there's going to be lots of 10 out of 10s tonight. I've made the quiz just a wee bit too easy. Tabitha, Thomas Elmer, Desi, Rico, Whiskey Novice Jim, Scotty S. Wow, Steve A, 9 out of 9. Listen, Too Slow, Dancing Midgie, Mark Slinger, Jens Rosa Christofferson, Whiskey Jason, Marvin, Chris Max Wildlife. So many of you have just made it very, very easy, or perhaps you're just learning far too much. Question 10. Let's keep it intact. Let's bring it home. 10 out of 10. We're going to see lots of 10 out of 10s tonight, surely. Which of these features in the top 5 best-selling single malts? A, Glenord. Is Glenord in the top 5 selling single malts? B, Glen Grant. Is Glen Grant in the top 5 single malts? C, Glenfarclas. Is Glenfarclas in the top 5 single malts? Global sales I'm talking about here. I'm not talking about Scotland or Britain or Europe. I'm talking about global sales. Which of those 3 distilleries has a place and features in the top 5 selling single malts? I'm looking for the banana skin emojis. Potentially a banana skin as I glance across to the crowd. Christ, what's going to happen to the view level now? Billy Saunders is saying, I want to say C. Ed is saying, isn't Glen Grant very popular in Italy? Scotty is saying, Glenord only goes to Asia. Hills Wood is saying B for Glen Grant. Thomas Elmer is saying no. I'm going to just put you out your misery here, and I'm going to tell you that I'm not talking just about Glenord. I'm talking about Singleton, the 4th biggest selling malt whiskey on the planet. Sources from 3 distilleries. You need to look at the small text underneath. It says Singleton of Duffton, Singleton of Glendullan, or Singleton of Glenord. And yes, there are regional distribution that is not always followed. They switch it up quite regularly. We can get Glendullan, Duffton, and Glenord here in the UK sometimes. But generally, Glenord tends to be focused on Asia. Glendullan would tend to go to the States, and we would tend to get Duffton across Europe and the UK. But the reason that Diageo invented the Singleton brand as a single malt was to compete against Glenlivet and Glenfiddich. Diageo just didn't have that. It had to source from those 3 distilleries to keep the stock provision. Glenord is one of the whiskies that features in the global top 5. Number 1 and 2 is always Glenfiddich and Glenlivet. Number 3 is Macallan. Number 4 is Singleton. And number 5 is Glenmorangie. This is based on 2018 figures. I couldn't actually find 2019 figures. But there you go. I know you're going to be raging. A lot of you are going to be really pissed off, sitting on 9 out of 9, and then you hit you with a question like that. I'll apologise now if that slipped you up. But we always do look for the occasional banana skin. It's always horrible when I put it in question 10. Right, how are we doing? Greg's Whiskey Guide is upset. On 7 out of 10, you usually do so much better, but it's still a clear pass mark, Greg. A great score. Vicky Thompson, 8. Dancing Midgie, 9. Damn the final hurdle. Steve A, 9 out of 10. Banana skin for Steve. Sid, Desi. Jason hung on for 10 out of 10. Good for you, Jason. Whiskey Novice 9. Oh, wow. I threw a stinker in at the end. Marku, 9 out of 10. Malcolm Douglas, 7 out of 10. Can I just mention as well that I did structure the question to say features. I tried to make it to say that it wasn't only that distillery, just features in the top 5 selling single malts. And unfortunately, I was a bit tricky, and every single potential answer was a Glen at the end as well. Bud Jenkins is saying, keep up the great quiz work. I learn something new every time. That's the idea, Bud. It's not to catch people out. It's to reassure you that you are learning and you're really knowledgeable folk, but it's nice if it makes you think a wee bit. Again, I think it was a bit too easy tonight. Mark Slinger is saying, boom, 10 out of 10, first time ever. Good for you, Mark. Let's look to see who else might have got a wee 10 out of 10 tonight. Royale is saying still 8 out of 10 is okay for me. I'd agree. It's a great score. Great score. I'm looking for more 10 out of 10s. I found Jason's 10 out of 10 there. How could all those 9 out of 9s were decimated then at the end? Wow. How many 10s do we have? Not so many in the end. Listen, if any of you do take the notion and you want to get creative and come up with good, crunchy quiz questions, good quality quiz questions, I've got a stack of stuff from the Doc, from Menno, from the Whiskey Rev in the past. If you score 10 out of 10 on a quiz, it's one of the privileges that you earn. There's no prizes in this quiz, but you can contribute to quiz questions if you like. And from time to time, I will pick out questions that's been submitted to me. And of course, if it's your questions, I'll credit you in them. I'm going to sit after we finish the stream tonight, and I'll pick out the people that I'm going to send out samples of these wonderful drams in the hope that you guys can get to enjoy a wee quiet moment with them as well, and have a wee sip, of history, or a wee snip as well, and enjoy it. Roy Bananas, Victor E is saying yes. Skogsmard is saying, I see way too many C answers. We talked about not mentioning seasickness at the start of the stream, didn't we? That's right. Greg Swissigig is saying, that was fun, Roy. No problem. Thank you, Greg. Thank you so much. And saying that maybe the 10 out of 10 should get their own emoji. There's no way I can make an emoji exclusive to just people that can get 10 out of 10, but I could put a 10 out of 10 emoji in there, and then it should only really be used by people that actually get 10 out of 10. Rolf, I think that's a great idea, and we just come to learn that the 10 out of 10 emoji is what I look for at the end of the stream. People that can claim to use that 10 out of 10 emoji. That I think that's a good idea. I'll do that, Rolf. Whiskey Novice Jim is saying, cheers as always, my friend. Catch you soon. Jim, thank you so much for staying up so late. I know it's almost midnight over in Northern Ireland for you as well, my friend. It's nice to have hung out with you another time. Thank you all, so many of you, for joining in. Thanks for staying to the ends. Thanks for staying and enjoying the quiz. Thanks for indulging me tonight as well. I'm kind of lonely tonight after all the whiskey company I've had in the last 2 weeks since Charlie joined me 2 weeks ago, and hanging out with all of you guys that I've been able to meet and hang out with in the last 2 weeks ever since. But I was always planning on a quieter, more relaxed stream tonight. In 2 weeks' time, I'll have and next week, I'll have a patron-only stream, and then the week after that will be the last Wednesday of the month. Second and last is the vPub, and I'll go out live. And as I said earlier in the stream, I'm hoping to have a guest along for that one, but I'll feedback to you through YouTube and through the other social media channels to keep you up to date with what's happening there. And in the meantime, I'll say thank you, all you amazing barflies, for your terrific support, and for hanging out with me on another Thursday for another fantastic vPub. I'll see my patrons in a week, and I'll see everyone else on the vPub at the end of March, and raise a glass and say thank you all, you wonderful, fabulous barflies. I love you all. Slancheva. Fabulous. Just fabulous.